Okay, so now we're going to look at another requirement for offsets in wet vented solar waste stacks. Only one offset is permitted, one nominally horizontal offset. So we have a nominally horizontal offset right in this section here between the first and second story. This is the same example as we had previous, where we said that we had 6 fixed units draining to this wet vented stack, because again we have 1.5 fixed units from each kitchen sink. On a wet vent, you do not include the load at the lowest fitting, most downstream fitting. So we include 6 fixed units, and because we're not serving water closets, I'm exceeding 4 fixed units but not exceeding 12, so we could have a 3-inch wet vent would be the size for our kitchen sink stack. So a 3-inch, that would allow us to have a maximum 2.4 meter length of offset. Okay, let's look at some examples. Here we have a water closet that's being wet vented through an adjacent lavatory, very common situation. So first we're going to start with all the naming. So we got our trap arm for a lavatory. It's going to turn into a fixture drain once we hit the vent. Trap arm for the water closet here. It's going to be wet vented. There's no vent per se for the water closet, but we're going to wet vent it through the fixture drain. And then both tie into what we would call a branch from this same story. So now we're going to include the loads. Again, all loads we get from table 2493. Minimum sizes for trap arms and outlet pipes, etc. So we'll go with minimums. Lavatory, 1.25 inch, 1 fixed unit. So we'd have 1.25 inch trap arm there, minimum. Flush tank water closet is 4 fixed units, and that's a 3-inch trap arm minimum. Okay, and then we're going to size the wet vent portion. So we start in the direction of flow. We're sizing the drainage system first, then we'll identify and size the vent. So for the fixture drain of the wet vent, again, we do not include the load of the most downstream fitting on a wet vent. So if we look at sentence 25812, it will direct us that we do not include the most downstream fixture's load that is connected to the wet vent. So whether it's 1 or 2 water closets, a water closet and another symmetrically connected fixture, or 2 other symmetrically connected fixtures, we do not include their load when we size the wet vent. So it's only the load of fixtures that drain into the upper portion of the wet vent that we include, and we include all their loads. Here it's just the 1 fixed unit to be included from the lavatory above. So now we look in this column, because we are serving water closets, and we're looking for a number that meets or exceeds 1 fixed unit. So the first option we have is up to 3 fixed units on a 2-inch wet vent. So this vertical section here is all 2-inch, and this section as well. That's minimum 2-inch size there to serve the water closet. Branch table, we have a total of 5 fixed units now, the lavatory and the water closet draining. And if we look at the branch table, it says that for up to 6 fixed units, we could use 2-inch pipe. But with the no reduction in size requirements, obviously looking upstream, we have a 3-inch trap arm. So we'll have to make our branch at least 3-inch to accommodate the water closet. So we have an 1.25 inch trap arm for the lavatory, 3-inch trap arm for the water closet, 2-inch fixture drain wet vent, and a 3-inch branch. Okay, now let's look at the vent. So continuous vent is the name that is associated with this wet vented system. Fixture drain wet vents and branch wet vents will always extend as a continuous vent. And of course, solar waste stack wet vents would extend as a stack vent. You know, sometimes the temptation is to call this an individual and continuous vent, but of course it's serving more than just one fixture, but it's not a dual vent. Dual and continuous vents would have symmetrical connections and the vent would serve only those two fixtures. So continuous vent is the name that fits. We said we had 4 fixed units for the water closet, 1 for the lav. So the total load on the continuous vent is 5 fixed units. And we have a 5-meter length to outside air. So we measure from the drainage connection all the way to outside air, unless we hit a major vent. Then we would stop at the major vent for length. So going with the 5 fixture units and a 5-meter length, the first thing we look up in this vertical column is the total fixture units that are served by the vent. We're on table 2583 for continuous vent sizing. So the first number we come to that exceeds 5 fixture units is 8. Now I look to the right. This has created a horizontal column to my right. And it says that if the length of your vent does not exceed 9 meters, it could be 1.25" size. So initially, table 2583 says that a continuous vent serving only 5 fixed units up to 5 meters in length, really up to 9 meters in length, can be 1.25". But according to table 2571, which must be accommodated with all dry vent sizing, we have to serve this 3-inch fixture, this 3-inch trap, or what we call a 3-inch fixture, the water closet. And when we have a 3-inch trap being served, the minimum size dry vent associated cannot be less than 1.5". So we're going to have to make that 1.5" to accommodate table 2571, because 2571 is the minimum table that must be satisfied for all dry vents. Bottom line is, whenever there's a dry vent serving a water closet, it must be minimum 1.5", and any wet vent serving a water closet must always be minimum 2-inch. Okay, here's an example where we have typical washroom fixtures. We have a flush tank water closet and a shower wet vented through the lav. So we'll start with our naming. Trap arm for the lav, trap arm for the shower and the water closet. And now we'll get the loads from table 2493. So flush tank water closet is 4. 1.25" we'll assume for the lav is 1 fixed unit, and 1.5 for an 1.5" shower, 1 head. Okay, so again, symmetrical connection, water closet and the shower. We don't include the shower's load. So for the fixture drain wet vent, we're going to go with 1 fixed unit, and we are serving a water closet. So serving water closets up to 3 fixed units, 2-inch wet vent. 2-inch for the wet vent. Now the branch, we have a total, if we go with separate loads here, 4 6.5 fixed units. Branch table again says, you know, you could be as small as 2.5 inch, but obviously with the 3-inch water closet upstream, no reduction in size says we'd have to be minimum 3-inch for the branch as well. So 2-inch on the wet vent, 3-inch on the branch. Okay, the continuous vent serving the same fixture group. So we've got 1 for the lav, 4 for the water closet, 1.5 for the shower. We had a 2-inch wet vent here, 3-inch branch. Okay, so we have a continuous vent serving 6.5 fixed units. The length is 7 meters. So the first thing we look up on table 2583 is the load. We have no more than 8 fixed units. I'm not exceeding 9 meters, so again, initially it looks like we could be 1.25". But what we've learned is that table 2571 must always be satisfied at minimum. And the largest trap we have here, we've got 1.25" lav, 1.5" shower, 3" water closet. So the 3" trap is going to require minimum 1.5" venting. So basically, we'd always be looking at the greater size from either two tables, and the greater size is what will govern. So 1.5" for the continuous vent, 2" wet vent, 3" branch. Okay, next example, we've got the same three fixtures, but we do not have the shower symmetrically connected. So we're going to see how that affects the loading here. We're going to start with naming. Same names, we've got our trap arms, branches, etc. Okay, so we're going to take those loads from table 2493. We got 1 for the lav, 4 for the flush tank, 1.5 for the shower. So draining through our branch, again, if we go with separate loads, we're not going to go with bathroom group here, but we'll call it separate loads for this example. 6.5 total fixed units draining. Sizing the wet vent now, we do not include the load from the most downstream fitting, which is the water closet, but we include all other loads. So 2.5 fixed units is the load. But as we're going to find out, so we have serving water closets. Up to 3 fixed units, I can still be 2". So still going to be 2". But to be accurate on the loading, it's 2.5 fixed units this time instead of just 1. Okay, branch table, 6.5 fixed units. It says for up to 12 I can use 2.5", but of course I got to be at least 3 to accommodate the 3" trap arm from the water closet. So you can see how the water closets always dictate this minimum size. And now we'll size our continuous vent. Again, this vertical continuation of the fixture drain is called a continuous vent because it's not individual, it's not dual, but it is continuous. Table 2583 is used to size continuous vents. We have 11 meters with 6.5 fixed units from our separate totals from the fixtures below, serving all fixtures below. So again, the method with this table 2583 is we look up this load first. So we vertically go down this column looking for a load of 6.5 or greater. We can stop at 8. It says we can, if the length of our vent does not exceed 9 meters, we can use 1.25". And if the length of our vent does not exceed 30 meters, we can use 1.5". So the table is asking for 1.5". The largest trap served here is the 3" water closet, and table 2571 requires 1.5" as well. So 1.5" from either table, 1.5" would satisfy both tables and would satisfy this installation as well. Okay, next example, we have a water closet, shower, and kitchen sink, all being wet vented through a lavatory. So we might have these washroom fixtures on one side of the wall, kitchen sink on the other side of a wall. We're going to pick it up on this wet vent as well. They all separately connect to the wet vent, nothing symmetrically connected with the water closet. So let's see how that affects the size here. Here's all their naming. Got trap arms for all 4 fixtures. And again, you can identify that fixtures are wet vented when they don't have their own vent on their trap arm. So directly connected to this soiler waste pipe, we must have a wet vent. So lavatory, 1 fixed unit. Kitchen sink, 1.5", we'll go 1.5. 1.5 for the 1.5" shower, and 4 fixed units for the flush tank. Okay, draining through our branch down here, we have 4, 7, 8 fixed units in total. First, we're going to size our wet vent here. And again, our wet vent originates at this highest trap arm connection and terminates down at the water closet connection. So in this entire section here is our wet vent for all these fixtures. The total load that is draining into the wet vent, other than the most downstream fitting, the water closet, is 4 fixture units, and we are serving water closets. So we're in this column. We've exceeded 3, but we haven't exceeded 8, so we can look at that horizontal column, and that's going to require a 3-inch wet vent. So 3 inches is the size of our branch wet vent here, right from the dry vent down to the water closet, 3-inch. Clean out would be 3 inches as well. And for the branch, again, branch table would say maybe 2.5 inch for 12 fixture units, but of course we know we have a 3-inch wet vent upstream, we have a 3-inch trap arm to connect, so 3-inch minimum for our branch and 3-inch wet vent. Okay, we're going to look at our continuous vent sizing now. Our loads were 1 for the lav, 1.5 for the sink, 1.5 for the shower, and 4 for the flush tank. So we had a total load of 8 fixture units on a 9-meter length continuous vent. So we're going to size it from the table that is used to size continuous vents, 2583. So again, the first thing we look up is load, no more than 8 fixture units. Table says up to 9 meters, you're okay on 1.25 inches. So 1.25 inches from table 2583, but again, double checking table 2571, which all dry vents must satisfy. For 3-inch trap, we need 1.5 inch venting. So 1.5 inches from table 2571 will govern. Okay, now we're going to look at a water closet that is wet vented with a shower through a lavatory. But we're also going to include a bathtub trap arm that's separately vented, however connects into the wet vent. The lowest part of the wet vent, most downstream part of the wet vent, is the water closet connection, as it should be. Highest or most upstream part of the wet vent is the lavatory's connection to the dry vent. So our wet vent is here. And we, again, have the separately vented bathtub that we're going to drain in there as well and see what effect that has on the sizing. So we're going to look at names, trap arms. We said that this vertical section from the lavatory to the water closet is our actual wet vent itself. Loads from table 2493, 1 for the lav, 4 for the water closet, 1.5 for the bathtub, 1.5 for the shower. Total load on the wet vent is all load draining into the wet vent, and we do have to include the separately vented trap arm. So the load to be accommodated here is 4 fixture units. We don't include the water closet, but everything else is included. So when we look up table 2581 sizing wet vents, we're in the serving water closets column. 4 fixture units would have to go down to 8. And that's going to require a 3-inch wet vent for this installation. Just filling in some other sizes here. The trap arm and fixture drain for the bathtub would be 1.5 inches connecting in here. So that's a 3 by 1.5 inch fitting, 3 by 1.5 inch for the shower. And then up here we'll have to see what size vents we have to dictate the other fittings. And our branch is going to have the total load of everything draining, which is 8 fixture units. So even though we've separately vented the bathtub, because the bathtub still drains into the wet vent, it's still accommodated in the load for the wet vent. Okay, and then sizing the branch up to 8 fixture units, no more than 12. Again, it says 2.5 inch on the branch table, but no reduction. We'd have to go with 3-inch for all the upstream piping. And now we'll look at sizing the vent. For the separately vented bathtub, we have an individual vent. Length and load for individual vents is not required. So for the separately vented bathtub, we have an individual vent. So when sizing individual vents, sentence 25822 says that length and load not taken into consideration. So individual vents are actually directly sized from table 2571, and it's based on size of trap serve. So for the bathtub, we had 1.5 inch trap, minimum size of vent 1.25 inch. So individual and dual types of vents directly sized from table 2571. And all other dry vents must also, at minimum, meet table 2571. The continuous vent includes all the load that was wet vented except for separately vented fixtures. So we include the separately vented fixture load on the wet vent, but not on the continuous vent. So the continuous vent is only serving for the purposes of sizing. The water closet, the lav, and the shower is all we'll need to include on the continuous vent. So if we went with separate loads, we would go with 6.5 fixture units there. The length is 4 meters. So we look at load first, no more than 8 fixture units. No more than 9 meters, could be 1.25 inch. But again, we'd still say that the continuous vent is serving a 3-inch trap with the water closet, which would dictate a minimum 1.5 inch for that vent. So 1.5 inch for the continuous vent as it serves the water closet, and then 1.25 inch for the individual vent that serves the 1.5 inch bathtub. Okay, next example, we have a clothes washer and laundry tray on the first floor, first story. And we're going to wet vent those through a solar waste stack that goes up to the second story to pick up a shower on that second story. So we have a solar waste stack here, and we're going to wet vent 2 fixtures on the lower story through the shower. Now that we've got all our names, we're just going to include all our loads. We've got 1.5 fixture units for the shower, 1.5 for the 1.5 inch laundry tray, and clothes washers are 2 inch and 2 fixture units. And again, these are all from table 2493. So the load on our solar waste stack wet vent is the load of all fixtures draining in other than the most downstream fitting. So we have 3 fixture units, and on table 2581, sizing the wet vent, we have not serving water closets, and I'm exceeding 2 fixture units but not exceeding 4, so I can have a 2-inch wet vent to accommodate all these fixtures. I've got an 1.5 inch shower connecting on the uppermost story to this 2-inch wet vent, 1.5 inch trap arm for the laundry tray. So consistent with sizing, which is good. The branch is the total load of all fixtures draining, so that's 5 fixture units. Branch table would say that for more than 3 but no more than 6 fixture units, you can have 2 inch. Looking upstream, I don't have any sizes greater than 2 inch. 2 inch trap arm for the clothes washer course, 2 inch wet vent. So 2 inch for the branch would be fine as well. Okay, now we'll look at the stack vent. Because this is a solar waste stack wet vent, that makes our vent here a stack vent, not a continuous vent. Stacks have stack vents. So we had a 2-inch base of stack. We have a total of 5 fixture units and a 2-meter length to open air. So we need to do 3 things when we look at the stack vent table 2584. We need to know the size of the base of the stack, the total load that is being vented through the stack vent, and then we'll have to look up what length we need to accommodate, and that'll finally dictate our size. So we have 2-inch base. We can look at this column here. Now we go to the right. we have two options, serving up to 12 fixture units or more than 12 but not 24. We have only 5 fixture units, so we'll take this category, keep going horizontal, and according to this table we could use 1.25 inches if the length of this stack vent under these conditions does not exceed 9 meters. So 1.25 inches initially, the size required by table 2584. But being a dry vent, we still need to satisfy table 2571. The largest trap served here is the 2-inch clothes washer. So for 2-inch trap served, minimum 1.5 inches venting. So we have 1.25 inches required by table 2584, 1.5 inches required by table 2571. So 1.5 inches will be the governing size of the stack vent for this installation. Here's an example of a non-compliant installation where what we actually have is an 1.5 inch lavatory trap arm here, a 2-inch shower, and the flush tank water closet. So we have a 3-inch trap arm over here. 2-inch showers on table 2493 are 3 fixture units serving no more than 2 heads. So we've got 3 fixture units there. We're not symmetrically connected with the water closet, so the load must be included, those 3 fixture units. 1.5 inch lavatories are 1.5 fixture units. So the total load draining to this wet vent is actually 4.5 fixture units, and we're serving a water closet. So serving water closets for up to 8 fixture units should be a 3-inch wet vent. So this wet vent from this T here, this should be a 3 by 1.5 inch T, 3-inch clean out, and all 3-inch piping down to the connection of the water closet, and obviously to the sanitary building drain as well. We're going to have 3-inch through this branch. So just want to show you an example of what sometimes is done in the field. Symmetrically connecting this fixture, ironically, could keep this to a 2-inch wet vent. Symmetrically connected shower with the water closet would bring the load down to this 1.5 fixture units, and of course at only 1.5 fixture units serving water closets could be a 2-inch wet vent. So if the installer would put a double fitting here, could accommodate the 2-inch wet vent, but as it's installed, 3-inch would be what's required.